Tony Khan was on the Ariel Helwani Show this week, doing his best to dance around all of Ariel's questions. Like I had said last week, Ariel Helwani is one of the best interviewers out there, and he plays hard too. He will ask tough questions. And he asked all the tough questions to Tony Khan. He asked about MJF's contract. He asked about the CM Punk media scrum. Not only the status of CM Punk, but also just what was going through his mind at the media scrum when he was sitting there just watching all this happen in real time. And try as Ariel may, he kept asking, he kept finding different ways to ask, but Tony Khan, like a goddamn ninja, was just dancing and ducking and dodging and maneuvering around all of his questions. Check out this clip.
What was going through your mind at that press conference Labor Day? I mean, I was just trying to watch you as Punk, who I know quite well, was, saying what he had to say. I was dying to know what was just happening in your mind in that moment as all that was unfolding. Could you share any of that with us?
I cannot share any of that with you.
Okay.
But I
Were you upset?
What you asked. I can't talk about it, but I appreciate, and understand that you had to ask.
Fair enough. Could I ask, what is the state of your relationship with CM Punk?
You can ask, but I appreciate that you asked, but I cannot answer that, my friend.
Okay, fair enough. Could I ask, what's the state of his relationship with AEW? Like, is he going to come back? Is he suspended? I think there's a lot of intrigue, a lot of questions regarding where he sits right now. I know he's nursing an injury, but is he going to come back, or is that up in the air?
You can ask, but I cannot answer that and comment, my friend.
Fair enough. And what about the other particulars involved in the alleged incident afterwards? Can you comment on their status with the company? Are they back at least?
It's the whole thing. I just the whole thing. Talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I
understand. I had to ask.
I understand what you got to do.
Like, the reason why I'm so drawn to MJF is because he talks about this side of the game. You're a football guy. We love the business side of sports, right? Free agency, transfers, deals. This, I think, is brilliant. So I'm just curious, why don't you want to talk about it? Like, why? This, I think, is part of his appeal, and I think it's great for the storyline, his spot in the company. He's going to be a free agent in a year and a half or so, and you're talking about it on the broadcast as well.
Yeah, but I don't see how going into detail about it, other than talking about his wrestling and what he brings to the show, and of course, everything he brings, his great promos, his great ideas. There's a lot there, but I think you're starting if you want to get into the contracts and that aspect of it with me. Same as my other jobs. If you wanted to talk about the contracts at Fulham, I would probably be kind of vague. I would say, like, I really like the player. I think it's good business we're doing. And I think it's a great transfer that we're making, and we're doing a smart move for the club. But, you getting into the numbers and stuff, rarely will I do that.
When he was on my show, he just said that he came to terms with you on a deal, but not an extension. Can I ask if that was accurate?
Yeah, I don't want to comment on what we did, but I think he's been well compensated, and I'm glad to have him on the shows, and he's like a huge part of it now. So it's great.
I understand the fact that Tony can't really answer those, especially if there is an ongoing legal issue with especially the CM Punk situation. But at the same time, like, why take an interview? Like, he spent this entire time taking every question that Ariel asked to, like, transition it into putting over his talent or hyping up his roster or hyping up a show or a match. He just kept, Ariel would be like, so, tell me some details about MJF's contract or whatever. And Tony Khan would be like, well, I can't answer that, but, MJF's a great talent. He's on the roster. His win-loss record is blah, 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 blah. He's beaten more guys than anybody. He's in the number one. He's a great draw for the ratings. And he just goes, you got to, like, he's hard. You got to, like, almost jump in and cut him off. It's like you ask him a question, the dude goes off for 10 minutes straight. Just fucking, he's such an uber nerd, like a numbers nerd, like a fucking math nerd. Like he'll just read you stats. It's like, oh, how's the weather today? He's like, well, in 1953, the weather changed in the cycle, and then the stats and the ranks and the blah, 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 blah. the dude goes off, man. And this was almost like, it was almost cringy bad. This was the worst Ariel Helwani interview I think I've ever seen. And it's not for Ariel. Ariel tried his damnedest, but he got nothing out of Tony. Tony was a fucking steel trap. And like I said, I get that. And even from a business perspective, I get wanting to keep a lot of that tight under wraps. But at the same time, like, you are in an interview with a guy that asks tough questions. You have to come to the table with something. Nobody wants to listen to your goddamn Ariel Helwani interview to hear about how fucking, FTR is one of the greatest tag teams on their win-loss record, and, they've won this championship and that championship. It's like, stop. I didn't even ask you that question, dude. I asked you how the weather was, and you fucking just chill, bro. There was a lot of fascinating tidbits that you could pull out of this, though. He went into more detail about how he books his show, that he basically is the guy that comes up with the outlines for this, and he's coming up with ideas. That he runs stuff by people, but he doesn't really have any kind of team or anything like that. And he talks about that he wants to, he's working with Warner Media to try to get a weekly show for Ring of Honor, and that Warner Media was impressed by the recent Ring of Honor pay-per-views, so they're kind of going off of that. They want to see a little bit more, so he's going to have to kind of keep, maybe do another pay-per-view or two to really kind of show a proof of concept that Ring of Honor is something that people want to watch. This is also, he kind of basically explained, this is why all the Ring of Honor titles are on AEW now, because Warner Media is watching, and he wants to expose Warner Media to the Ring of Honor, some of the Ring of Honor talent, the key talent, the championships, those kind of matches. He just kind of wants to familiarize Warner Media with that more than even the fans. So all the fans out there complaining that there's too many titles and why do you even have this Ring of Honor belt on a AEW show? It doesn't make sense. Well, that might be true. I might say that in a bubble. But this kind of goes to show that we don't always know the greater picture. Because they do have that partner in Warner Media, and maybe Warner Media specifically wants to see some more of Ring of Honor as proof of concept. So Tony doing these things is more than one purpose, and it's a greater cause than maybe some of us understand at the time that we're watching. A lot of other little fun tidbits, he talked a little bit more about the football league and that sort of thing. Talked about his dad, Papa Shad Khan. It was a fascinating, it's always fascinating to hear from Tony Khan, especially when you get a good interviewer in there like that can ask, because a lot of times these days, especially when you get an interview with Tony Khan, it's almost exclusively just babble about his stats and all that nonsense that I was talking about earlier. It's hard to get really good shit out of him. And I feel like Ariel got what you could out of Tony. He was just being a steel trap about a lot of other stuff. But, he did open up a little bit more about the WWE stuff. He did admit to having a conversation with Nick Khan and kind of taking the tone that he was not that big of a fan of Nick Khan, that he didn't really like him. But of course, when Ariel asked him to elaborate on that, Tony Khan wouldn't elaborate on that anymore either. Literally none of the juicy stuff he was able to talk about one single bit. But that one's interesting too, and I wonder if that plays into how Tony Khan's been out there talking about how WWE did him dirty or doesn't respect him, or he just gets bad, a vibe from them that they're not too friendly towards him. Maybe that came from some sort of meeting conversation he had with Nick Khan. So he never met him in person, but maybe some sort of phone conversation perhaps. Who knows? But that's about as much as you get out of this interview. I do recommend checking it out. For those details that you are able to get out of Tony Khan. But this is going to frustrate you just a little bit, I could tell Ariel was getting frustrated too. And even Tony was getting frustrated by the questions. He kept kind of repeating, he's like, you can ask, but I'm not going to answer. And Ariel would be like, okay, how about this? And Tony's like, you can ask, but I'm not going to answer. And Ariel would, bless his heart, he kept trying, he kept trying to find different ways to get any kind of detail at all. He would ask the question in a different way or whatever. So bless his heart, but this was kind of a bullshit interview with Tony Khan. And but go out of your way to watch it anyway, just to kind of see the train wreck that it is. And I will catch you on the next clip. Hey, thanks for checking out that clip. Don't forget to check out other clips here on the channel. And while you're there, throw a like, throw a subscribe. And don't forget to check out full episodes each and every Sunday of the Pro Wrestling Podcast.